Welcome everybody at Axians live session with the team Liberate your SAP data and non SAP data. My name is Erwin Kloppenberg. I work at Axians as a business development manager, mainly in trade and manufacturing industry. And one of my main goals is to provide value to our customers through collaboration. Collaboration brings me to the table lineup, my guests. Guys, welcome. Let us do a short introduction. Let me start with Alexander.
Yeah, Erwin, thanks for inviting us. My name is Alexander van Helm. I'm a technical director at Axians, Business Analytics Laren. As a technical director, I follow the market, see what's happening, see what's the impact for our customers, and then look at what does that mean for us, how can we help our customers better. And that's why I really like this topic, the liberation of SAP and non-SAP data.
Thank you. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Jaap Willem Verhevenwijk. I'm the sales director for Click Data Integration Solutions within the Benelux, working for the Click organization. And I help my customers navigate our integration capabilities in the market.
Great. Harry?
Last but not least.
Certainly, yes.
Yeah, Harry Tolsma. I'm a technology strategist at Microsoft. Being at Microsoft for 15 years now, and talking about technology is, of course, my passion as a technology strategist, and SAP and data and unlocking that is one of my favorite themes. So thanks for having me here.
Okay. Great to have you guys. What are we going to do? We have approximately 40 to 50 minutes to talk about, firstly, the vision of Axians, how we see a modern data platform. We'll talk about how Click Solutions, QDI, fits in there. And also, as collaborating, how does Microsoft Azure and Snowflake fit into that proposition? Then we'll do a short demonstration on how data is extracted from SAP and how the change data capture functionality works. And then in the end, we have a panel discussion with each other on how to proceed. Okay, for the viewers at home, as you see on screen, we have an email address. If you have any questions, feel free to contact us on this email. We are trying our best to reply as soon as possible. Okay, Alexander, as a colleague, welcome again. We did a lot of sparring the last couple of months about how to help our customers regarding data extraction and data analytics opportunities and propositions. At Axians, we have a vision about that. Please indulge us, tell us more.
Yeah, the vision is that data is more than just analytics. If you look at a modern data platform, it needs to do more than just providing the data to a report. It needs to give you more than only data from business systems. You need data from all kinds of processes, from all kinds of machines, from all kinds of sensors. You need to be able to do complex things with them. First integrate them, but then do complex things with them. See what's on that image, or see what's in that voice recording, or what's in that sub-record. And then make models on top of that, and be able to really use it and interact with that data. And to really use it, it's not only a report, it's really use it in your operational process. And that gives a feedback loop in the data. So you need to have more than just the old-fashioned data warehouse. You really need a data platform with a lot of flexibility, scalability, because it's not at the same pace at every moment of the day. You need to be able to configure that. Yeah. And that's why we're looking at modern data architectures, and I'm really happy that these guys are talking with us about that subject.
Yeah.
And if you look at the next slide, that it's also really important to know that you need more than just technology to be able to do a data-driven approach. With only data technology, you won't get data-driven. You need to align it with your strategy. What does your company want with data? What does it mean for your company? What does the ethics say? What do I want to do with that data? Be able to govern that data, that you know that you're playing by that rules, and not suddenly be in the newspapers like the Belastingdienst or some other subjects which we have seen the last few years. And also help your people your employees to work with that data, to have the right literacy, to have the right tools, So that's a full quadrant and not just a technology part that we need to do. So,
yeah.
And if you look at how we arrived here on the next slide, you see that at first there were just reports, and we were really happy if we could satisfy the executive board with a report on what the sales was doing the last year, and then we did well, and that was all data silos, especially made for that report. And what we saw is that in those reports, because there was more than one report, figures were not the same. You were looking at different figures, so we thought as a total marketplace, we need to centralize that. We need to get that into one central data warehouse, everything govern everything. So we did, and you saw appliances coming from that. Microsoft had a really nice data warehouse appliance, for instance, to be able to perform on that data, to have more data in. But still you got stuck in too much data handling as one. And if you look at the new technologies arriving with the cloud, where you have your scalability and where you have the possibility to pay as you go instead of buying a full license up ahead. And you see new technologies like data virtualization, that you don't always have to store your data, but you can use your data as if it was in the same silo. You see new possibilities arriving, and that's why we call this really a new revolution in the data industry. Mm. And on the next slide you see is some examples why this is really a revolution. And that is because you can go from the capital expenses to the operational expenses, which makes it easier to try, and which gives you a lot of agility. Of course, the huge scalability, but also the different types of data you are able to handle. And that is what really changed if you look at the last 5 years, where the industry is really operationalization is data, is integrating that into the operational process. You need to be able to handle lots of data, mm-hmm. and to handle constant innovation. And that's the last two bullets you see here. The rest people can read for themselves. Yep. So that's our vision on data. Be able to compile it into capabilities, into services. Have those services scalable, only on when they're needed, and that gives you the ability to do with your data what you need to do with your data.
Yeah, thank you, Alexander. Just to summarize, availability, scalability, flexibility, but also, and that's pretty obvious, cost-friendly those are very important.
If you know what you're doing, cost-friendly.
It's always like that, huh? But
that's why a lot of companies are afraid of operational expenses instead of capital expenses, because at operational expenses it can be cost-friendly, but you need to monitor what you're doing. And in capital expenses, you know what it will cost you.
Yeah.
So that's a hurdle for some companies.
Yeah, cost management is very important topic in cloud technology.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Jaap, welcome once again. You as a sales director at Qlik, you'll have a lot of experience in solving the challenges of our customers. I hope so, huh? But of course it is.
Of course.
Our main theme for today is SAP data, and also combining SAP data with other data. What Alexander explained, combining those silos, that's where the real value will be. But could you explain us why is it so difficult, and how can Qlik help?
Yeah, so I think I first want to just focus on where's this need coming from, right? I mean, one of the hot topics for everyone, and we're all aware of it, is the big COVID pandemic that we're currently all in and slowly coming out of, is looking like. Yep. But what you've seen is that there's a fundamental shift happening in the market, is that a lot of companies are realizing that the models and structures they had in the past are not agile and flexible enough to be able to adapt to the change. And the organizations that were already on that journey from a couple of years ago are benefiting from that now, because they have things in place and have architected for the future. So a lot of companies are now struggling with, we need to change our architecture, we need to change the way that we do business to be able to use data more effectively, right? So a great example is in supply chain is that you have to re-optimize your entire supply chain, and that has effect on your suppliers and your sub-suppliers. If you look at the next slide, one of the typical ERP systems, of course, is SAP. used by many industries in many ways, highly customized. And it's complex. There's a lot of data that is locked up in complex models. You need a lot of expertise to be able to get it out. There's also often a licensing constraint that's related to how do I extract without, getting someone at the end of the month knocking on the door with a nice little purchase order for some additional usage. And of course, performance and latency are all aspects that are related to extracting data. Now, we're not saying that you need to take your data out because it's important, because the shift that you need to realize is that customers are, as you've already mentioned, are trying to combine SAP data with other non-SAP data systems. And where we accelerate in from a data integration perspective at Qlik is that we are allowing customers through a single architected platform to automate the data pipelines from multiple databases or sources into any kind of desired target. And if you look at the next slide, specifically around SAP and creating data warehouses, for example, Snowflake or for Synapse, we also have these custom-built templates that are based on our knowledge and expertise in the market, 25 plus years. We have a large install base around SAP. We have the experience there, that we are actually able to help customers, together with the partners, accelerate their journey into these new architectures, which goes into the next slide, right? What is then this architecture? Basically, raw to ready, as we like to call it internally, is freeing the data from SAP or Oracle or SQL, any kind of database that you want, through change data capture technology, performant, low impact, fast, real time, into data warehouses like Snowflake and Microsoft, to be able to use downstream for any kind of capabilities, whether reporting or predictive analytics on a data lake, for example. And to do this, to achieve this together with our partners, which is the next slide I'd like to mention, is we have a single platform that we work together with our partners like Microsoft and Snowflake, and also with Axians, to be able to help customers accelerate that journey and to architect for the future, bringing the business users and the data into the now.
Yeah. Thank you, Abel. That's for me. I'm very enthusiastic to see how quality and performance on the data extraction, how it's made available in a modern data platform. That is one of the key difficulties or challenges that we see. Very impressed with the way QDI helps on the matter. So, Harry, to come to you, then we have the data in our platform.
Yeah.
But then the data is growing. It needs to be performant. It needs to be, we've heard earlier that it needs to be available every time we need it. It has to perform, available, but mostly all, and that's not what we discussed before, security, also a big theme.
Yeah.
Please, could you share your vision on that, how Microsoft Azure helps here?
Yeah, of course, yeah. Well, given the context of SAP, where we are talking about today, so let's kind of use SAP as an example. So the first thing we do is to get a real tight relationship with vendors like SAP, not only to make sure that if we run SAP workloads, that it's certified and it's according to their best practices, but also mainly to prepare stuff for you as a customer or our partners, like single sign-on, like data integration, all those kind of things that are hard to do. Let us do that and prepare it and set it up in Azure so that you can simply use it and don't have to worry about that. Just like QDI from Qlik has its roots in this case in getting SAP data out very quickly. That's cool stuff, because then you don't have to worry about that. So that's kind of the same in Azure as well. And then you have to talk about all the things Alex said about the new modern data platform, what's needed there, like flexibility and scalability. So if you go to the next slide, and let me use SAP again as an example. So you want to be very flexible in how you run your SAP instance. Sometimes you need less power than other things. For example, if you have an educational version for your employees, you only need a small instance, whereas you run your workload, you'll use a mega big instance with a lot of internal memory and be able to easily scale up and scale down, which is kind of normal for us in Azure, which is a hyperscale, very automated environment. But also if you look at the next slide to internal memory, which is also an example here in SAP, SAP is very internal memory focused and needs very specific internal memory. Whereas in another environment, you don't really need that. So it's very nice to have the choice of either go big or go low and change that in time. So that's kind of the basics of cloud technology in common and in Azure. But then let's switch to data, because we're talking about data. So if we go to the next slide, you'll see that what you need is that modern data platform Alex was talking about. And you see that you need a landing platform for your data, as Jaap was talking about when QDI has done its work. Then you land in an environment which we call Synapse, Azure Synapse. And Azure Synapse is a very flexible platform where you can do ingestion of data, you can store your data in the underlying technology, which could be relational or non-relational. It could be open source, like a Spark cluster. We don't care. And that's perhaps new for people who hear this, but we're not that stressed about technology, whether it's Microsoft or not. And you have to do analytics on it. And you can do analytics with Java or .NET or R or Python, whatever you want. You can do it from that Synapse platform. Or you can use things like Power BI to expose it to your end users. So you have one overlaying platform from one environment where you can do all those things. And it ticks all the boxes Alex mentioned of that modern data platform. Whatever your use case is, you'll be able to do it. But also, like you said, Erwin, on a cost-friendly way. Scale down if you don't need it, scale up if you need it. And I think that Alex is going to talk a little bit about that as well when he discusses Snowflake. So if you go to the next slide, because you also, of course, asked me about, hey, but how's security and compliance doing? Well, we've got a separate team in Redmond, which only does one thing, get certified on everything that's possible. Here in the slide, don't read it, but I dotted the yellow ones as being specific for the industries we're talking about and specific for the region we are talking about, is that you can see that we comply with almost anything that's out there. One specific mentioned, because we announced 2 weeks ago that within Azure it was already possible to determine in which data center you deploy. So if you deploy it in the Netherlands, it stays in the Netherlands, doesn't go anywhere. But we now announced that for all our cloud services and log analytics and everything, we now are going to comply with the EU laws to keep all data in the EU. So I think that's a very important one for compliance. So if you go to the last slide for my section, the security part. I sometimes say to people when I talk about security, look, for us this is a given thing. Because if we fail to do this security part well, then we're toast as a company, because this is the base of everything we do. So you see here nice green marks on every piece of security that you can imagine that you would ever need. And yeah, it's embedded in all our product teams. They all have a security part in it, and they need to comply to every security measure that we take. And besides the security that we do per product to guard your data and to have encryption at rest, encryption in transit, we also have a very extensive, how do you call that, anti-hacking community that we lead. So we're also very busy in the world to try to get all the dirty stuff out there deleted. So that's also something we do. But yeah, the security part is, I think, very strong.
It's getting good to see that it's getting a lot of attention also. But as you say, Microsoft.
If we fail here, then we're gone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. Harry, thank you very much. Good to see that also. One of the myths is that the data storage is expensive. But you explained very well that you only pay when needed. So that's also put out into the cost-friendly way and the agility that we talked earlier.
And we even go one step further. That's a default functionality, which is called the Azure Advisor.
Yeah.
And it kind of monitors your environment and gives you every day an analysis on that. Like, hey, you underutilize this one, put it on a lower tier, so then you will save so much money per day.
Yeah.
And that's something which is built in automatically. So if you follow those guidelines, you'll sure that you pay the less money.
Yeah, what you need. Pay what you need.
Yeah.
Harry, also one thing I'm curious. How we discussed this before, but we experienced that a lot of customers are reluctant to transform or to transit to the cloud.
Yeah.
Just to give to the audience, what would you say on that?
Well, there are a lot of answers possible, of course. But I sometimes look at it this way, and this is perhaps a bit of a strange way, but you could also look at Azure as being just a data center. And it is just a data center. The only difference is it's highly automated. You get everything you get in what you get if you do it in your own data center or in the data center of a hoster, plus a lot of extra things, a lot of extra innovation, but also extra security.
Yeah.
Let me give a short example. DDoS attacks. We handle DDoS attacks on the outside of our data center so that those DDoS attacks don't arrive in the data center at your application. And we prevent that for everybody already. And that's an extra thing you get if you want it.
Yeah.
But even if that wouldn't be enough for you, what people mostly don't know is that perhaps in your own data center you have a hardware encryption facility. But what people don't know, you can ship that one to our data center, we'll mount it up in our racks, and we'll use your hardware encryption for your environment. So it is just a data center. You can do everything you do now in your own data center, plus a lot more.
Yeah, exactly. I think the most important is that you have a data center with a lot more on steroids.
Yeah.
Regarding if you do it yourself. So thank you for your explanation, Harry.
Yeah.
Alexander, you also as a representative of Snowflake, the same question regarding a fast storage provider, availability, scalability. How does Snowflake fit in?
Yeah, that's why we found Snowflake as a partner, because it's the first data platform that was really built for the cloud. And it's really built on top of Azure. So it has all the security and it fits in the ecosystem, like Harry told, and it just runs within Azure and within your private network of Azure. But it is a database or data platform on steroids. And what makes it so special is that compute and storage is really separated. And you can drive up a new compute for every data need. So you have the data scientist could have its own compute, and your report won't be affected by that, or your ETL job or your other job won't be affected by that. That really makes it nice. And you can also use that to have finance not be interfering with sales, but also to have them pay for their usage and sales pay for their usage. So you can really make a finance cost work, operating work on that. And it really helps in putting data and structured and semi-structured data together in a container and without maintenance giving you the best performance. And it almost scales linear, so if you need performance, you just scale it up, and if it goes down and you only use it for half of the time, you pay the same for the same price. So it's a really nice database, but try it within your context. Look at what's best for you, because there's a lot of good services on Azure, and I see Snowflake as a service on Azure. It's an own company, but they've built it on top of that cloud technology, and it fits into the technology. Yeah. But look at your situation and see what's best for you. Do a POC on your data with Synapse and Snowflake, and see what do I get for that. Can I do with my data what I need to do with that data? Yeah. I've seen a lot of use cases on both, and they can handle a lot. And it depends on the use case which one performs better for better costs. Yep. So look at your own situation and try that out. Yep. But Snowflake is a really good data platform, and that's why we closely work. A representative is a bit of a big word. We work closely together with them, and I'm interested in that technique, so I've specialized in that technique as well. But if you use it, it's just another database, but then it performs, and that's kind of nice.
Well, it's always nice if a database performs. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, and it really performs. I've seen it in Synapse as well, but that you really look at queries where on your on-prem database you wouldn't even think of trying that out. How can I do some set operation over a few trillion records and see if there's something in there? Yeah, if I do that on my on-prem database, I have to wait at the bicycle corner, and the database administrator will hit my head off. But if you do that in the cloud, you can try it, and you can see if there's something in it, and it just ends within a proper time.
But it's also a good example on how we at Axians work as a network. We try to look at the customer use case, and we try to fit in what's
best
good
for them.
Yes, exactly, and that is from my point of view a strong selling point. Yeah. Any other thoughts about the benefits?
Yeah, if you look at the sheet, which I also included, there's a lot of research on that topic. But if you look at customers who have used Snowflake, they also say it's and cheaper and more performant and a quicker return on investment than we thought. So look at the sheet if you want to.
We have it on screen. Yeah. Behind you.
Yeah. If you want to see that.
Yeah.
It's possible to do the things with data you want to nowadays in the cloud, hosted by Azure, and using the service you want, whether that's Synapse or Snowflake. It's great. Yeah. I'm really glad we're here now and not 10 years ago.
I should call you an enthusiastic.
And maybe just a bit of context for both platforms from a Qlik perspective is the sheer scalability of our platform, be able to feed those kind of modern platforms. We have examples of Pekar, which is a Snowflake customer. I mean, they're ingesting up to 30 different SAP and non-SAP systems into Snowflake in real time. Yeah. It's only being managed by a team of 4 people. And for Synapse, we have also similar use cases where multiple global databases and sources are being streamed real time into Synapse, and it performs very well. So this bringing the data in and then doing something with the data is really beneficial for the customer.
Yeah. I think that's a very nice chain to go to our live demonstration. Yeah, it's like we discussed. It's like we rehearsed it. But thank you very much.
Very smooth.
Yeah, very smooth. Guys, thank you much. Thank you very much for your input, sharing your thoughts. Now we're going to look at a demonstration. We're going to look at 2 things. First of all, the demonstration will be on how SAP or how QDI with their SAP connectors do the data extraction directly into SAP. Once it's extracted into the data platform, you will see, and one that's where I'm pretty fond of, is the change data capture functionality. What it means, once you've changed a record in your SAP database, it's directly available in your modern data platform. If you have like ambitions for real-time analytics ambitions, this is a must-have that you'll need. Okay, enjoy the video.
So what we're going to go ahead and do here for the purposes of the demo is we're going to connect up to an SAP system. We're going to extract that data into Snowflake. We're then going to run transformations using Compose to get it into a best practices data warehouse and data mart. And then we are going to go ahead and catalog that information and use it as a shopping cart style approach to allow a user to come in, pick information, and go through the process of consuming that data that we've collected. So let's go ahead and start walking through the process of what a Tunity Replicate is going to look like, moving data off of an SAP system into Snowflake. So we go ahead and take a look at the SAP system we're going to use here, and we can see it's just a good old SAP IDES server, and it's going to be written into our Snowflake system. And at this point, all I need to go do is pick the tables that I want to go and write over. And I can do that by coming in and looking at our sales and distribution information. I'll go ahead and get a list of the tables. I'll add everything and hit OK. And as we can see, I'm going to be grabbing a whole bunch of tables from the ERP system that are related to customer sales distribution information. Now at this point, I'm going to do a couple of different things. If I look at my task settings, I'm currently setting up to go ahead and do change processing. So once the data starts moving, it will replicate the base data set and then start watching SAP for new transactions that come in. So we'll go ahead and start this process by saying go ahead and run, and it will now start writing to Snowflake this information off of SAP. So as the process goes, what's going to do is it's going to reach out to Snowflake and dump those existing tables that I've written out there previously and start the process over of uploading the information off of the SAP system. Now the SAP system is running on-prem, happens to be running on SQL Server. So we're going to be picking that information up and we're going to go ahead and write that information out into Snowflake. So we're going to go ahead and watch the process start here. And if we take a look at full load, we can see that it's indeed taking the information and starting to load those tables already. So we've already loaded 5 out of the 28 or so that we're going to write. And we can see the process of it slowly starting to move the information. Now, again, this is a relatively small SAP system, so current performance is not what we're tracking here. It's what we're looking at as functionality. So we're almost halfway through now of loading this information. And once we take the information, we load it into Snowflake. What we're going to have happen then is we're going to move over from full load capability to going ahead and start tracking change processing. So that's where we actually start to see the data moving in real time. So we're almost done here with our data loads. We're going to pick up just a few more tables. And there we go, 97%. We're almost done. All right, so while this is moving over and we can see that our last table is now getting loaded, we'll move over to change processing. And now we're seeing the fact that we have no operations, there's no incoming changes, full load is complete. So at this point, what we're going to do is pull over our SAP window and I'm going to start adding some information. So I'm going to go ahead and go into one of these data files, sales and distribution documents, and I'm going to go ahead and start executing that. So at this point, what will happen is as SAP starts to write these transactions, and we can see that that's processing, we'll see the queue start to load up here inside of the Tunity Replicate system. And what we're seeing now is the fact that it's indeed moved those information. So SAP is still running. It's still loading that information, but as that process happens, it's being written into Snowflake. So we've already done 579 inserts for the MAKT table. If we look down here, we've done 20 inserts into customer master, material master, etc., etc. So those transactions now are being written live from SAP into Snowflake. So that's how the change data capture works. The system's done, the transactions are still processing, but that's it. That is an example of Replicate moving data and keeping it synchronized from a source system, in this case SAP, into Snowflake. So now that we've landed that data from SAP into Snowflake, we're going to take the additional step of modeling it in a best practices way. And we're going to do that using Click Compose. So what we can see over here is that information that we've written, the SAP DW demo, and now we're going to go through the process of doing the additional transforms to get that data ready for consumption by the analytics user. So we can see some of the transform that we're doing visually here. We can actually come over if we want and look at all of the attributes, that have been scanned and created from the data. But if we come over and take a look at what that data warehouse is going to look like, we can see that it's estimating the number of records that we got, the keys, how many satellite tables it would have to create if we were going to be doing slowly changing dimensions. But most importantly, we can see the fact that it's going to create almost 1,650 SQL scripts to manage the process of creation of this warehouse. And additionally, it's going to take an additional step of going ahead and writing that information out to these data marts, so that we can understand here what's going on. It's going to create the schemas. It's going to create the dimensions. So it's going to go through this process of creating this information for us. And we can look here at the ETL commands. And this is all of the information, the DDL, that's being managed by the process. So again, what Click Compose brings to the table is taking that raw landed OLTP data and transforming it into analytics ready data. And that's really the value proposition here, is that it's actually going to leverage Snowflake to do all of this calculation, all of this computation of transforming the data. And we're going to have these new schemas that created for analytics inside of Snowflake.
Yes. Okay. Just a brief recap. We've seen that with these SAP connectors, we've eased the difficulty on data extraction. And also, we've seen how the change data capture functionality works. If we change something in the source, it's directly available in the data platform. Hope you're as enthusiastic as I am. Okay, guys. We still have some time. It's ready for some panel discussion. Harry, let me start with you to ask. What we see is that innovation pace is going fast, super fast. Let's say I work 15 years in the market. For me, it's sometimes difficult to keep up. Let alone, it's my business, or it should be my business. Let's put it like that. I can imagine our customers. It's a lot more complex to cope with that innovation pace. Talk about that some more, but I'm very curious. How does, from your point of view, so from Microsoft strategy, what does it look like in 5 years from now?
Yeah, well. Very brave of you to ask a technology strategist.
You have 1 minute.
Oh my God. Well, let me choose the biggest one, because I think that will have the most impact. So in 5 years from now, quantum computing will be alive and kicking. So as we speak, we are developing quantum computing, as a fun fact, actually in the Netherlands, together with the University of Delft. And it's already up and running there. And that quantum computing is, of course, a total new way of computing, which has a massive impact on the speed of how you calculate things by millions. So what will that mean? That will mean that all the innovations we have around artificial intelligence, machine learning, the deep analysis of data, which is now done by just throwing 1,000 VMs at it to calculate an algorithm. If you would do that with a quantum computing, you wouldn't need 1,000 VMs looking at that algorithm for hours. A quantum computer would do that in like a minute. So you can imagine what that would mean for everything we do. I mean, we already infuse AI in everything, being Office or Teams or SQL Server or Azure or Dynamics. Doesn't matter. AI is infused based on the technology as it is at this moment. But as soon as we get that quantum computing in there as well, we'll be able to speed up by millions. And you almost can't imagine what will happen then.
What's the benefit for our customers?
That the infusion of AI will be so immense that a lot of things that you now have to do manually, you don't have to do at all. Let me do a simple example in the security workspace. So we have Sentinel, which is our SOC SIEM solution, which monitors the behavior of hackers and all the things that are happening on your IT system. If that's a very large IT systems around multi-cloud, around multi-data centers, devices, etc., you can imagine that it is immensely how much log data is produced there. So it's impossible to let a human decide what's happening. So we already put AI on that, but that still needs a lot of power and a lot of intelligence to get a grasp on what's a threat and what's not a threat. If you put a quantum computer on that, it's like instantly. If something happens, it's recognized instantly. So what's the effect on our customers? Their environment will be a lot safer if we get that quantum computing in. And that's only an example in the security space, but it'll be a very important one. Yeah, and you can actually do it already with Azure Quantum. You can already experiment writing small quantum computing algorithms, and you can run it on Azure Quantum.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Love it. Only 1 minute.
Only 1 minute.
Okay. Jaap can do now.
All right.
Jaap, the vision from Qlik, how do you see it?
So, traditionally, Qlik, of course, very much a BI vendor, seen as a market, as a market leader in that space. But we're also seeing a shift in terms of our capabilities and also what our customers are asking. And it sort of is in line with what Harry has been speaking about. As compute power increases and with the advent of quantum computing and the ever growth of more storage and faster and quicker, I think we're going to see probably within the next 5 years fundamental shifts in new business models that we're already seeing today, but I think we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg in terms of what's happening, right? And when you see that in terms of the role that data plays in that paradigm shift, is that more devices will generate more data, more systems of record will be shifting more to systems of engagement. So really bringing the context of the now, coming back to the now, in context of creating new and better products and services and benefiting society. Just to be a little bit semantic there, but in essence, technology is driving an efficiency, but it's also allowing us to be servicing and helping our customers better. So that's what I envision. And just to come back to Qlik as our sort of our vision in the next couple of years, is that we're also shifting way more to real time, right? We have this concept that we call active intelligence, where before we focused about, we need to be able to create context and awareness of what's been happening in the past or what's happening sort of now. But active intelligence is shifting it to what's happening now and how can I act on it so that I can, benefit from using that data most efficiently to make a change and affect the bottom line, or to service a customer better, to better understand what's going on, and in that way, bringing new initiatives, new innovations in the market. I think it's going to be a fantastic time to be alive. I love being in technology, to be honest.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting.
I think the gentleman here will agree on that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jaap Willem.
Yeah, I think it's going that fast that we can't predict what will happen. Yeah, we know quantum will happen.
Yeah.
And we know that will bring new compute power we can't imagine. Because we can't imagine that, we don't know what kind of new services will be built on top of that. So that's why we really need that modern data architecture approach, where you look at capabilities and dare to think about capabilities you want to have, but never imagine that you could have them. Start to think about it. What's really your business? And also, what do I want to do and what do I want to be known for? Because we can do a lot more with data. It's going to be that big. And like you said, autonomous. That means that we need rules on how we want to act as a company on the data, ethics, governance. It's long been, governance has long been only about control, but it's also you need governance to be, like Gardner calls it, adaptive governance, to help enable the possibilities of data, but within the context of your company.
Exactly.
So I think governance will come back strong. It's always been there, but it's always been a bit in the auditor's room, and it will go to the business because they need the governance to have those autonomous processes.
Yeah, and I think the ethics part is also very important. Our compliance and security officer wrote a really good book on that, paper on that as well, because you get questions in the business whether it's ethical to do things or not. Let me give an example. There's an example of a bank who's analyzing the behavior on their bank accounts of their customers, and they can predict in 94% certainty if people are going to divorce or not within 2 or 3 months.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that will make a decision if they want to loan or not, or something like that?
Well, one customer then becomes 2 customers because they divorce and they want to keep both customers. Mm-hmm. So for them, it's a good thing to know that they're going to divorce. Is it ethical?
That's the next question.
I doubt it. I doubt it.
That's quite interesting.
But it is possible, technically. But you still have to think about, is it ethical to do this? I mean, Coolblue analyzes the behavior of their customers so they can predict what they are going to buy next. So that they can already purchase it upfront cheaper, so that when the time comes that they buy their next product, it's already there and they can offer it to send it out tomorrow. Yeah. So they bought it cheaper and they can send it quicker, so the customer satisfaction is higher by using analysis on data.
Very interesting indeed, yeah.
I had a similar case actually. That you just sparked my memory on something, Harry. Is that I think there's a credit card company that analyzes payment behavior with the credit card, and based on the behavior, they can actually predict, is this fraudulent and/or is there at risk that we need to insure that purchase? Because a credit company has to underwrite every single transaction to be able to protect it if it gets stolen or lost. And based on the behavior of the norm, they can actually save millions of insurance costs. Yeah. Because they know they're acting in the norm of the way that they act with their payment things. And the ones that are a little bit sketchy, those are the ones they insure, because they know that if something happens with that kind of person and they lose it or it gets broken or they make a claim, then at least it's protected by the insurance. Yeah, that's quite interesting.
Yeah, but as long as we start to do that better, that insurance will go up because they will only insure the things that will get stolen. Yeah. So it's a round circle where you end at some kind of status quo where you always be. Look at the ethics you want, like you told, the divorce. You can act on a risk perspective, from a bank perspective. Okay, but if you're going to start to write two separate letters to that household, that's not what you want to do. And it's like yeah. And I also know an example of where a family got sent a happy box, as it's called in the Netherlands, that there's a baby coming up for their teenage daughter, which hadn't told it yet. So, and that's what's taken from, and you don't want to be the start of that discussion.
Yeah, I think that's an important one. I think the ethical part is the most important thing.
Interesting to talk about, but not only ethical. Also, I wanted to talk to Alexander. You stated, we still have some couple of minutes, so I just wanted to zoom in. You stated there are 4 factors: not only technology, the organization, governance, very important, need will rise. But what about the capability of adopting? The technologies Harry is talking about quadruplicated. It makes, when I think of this, how do our customers gonna jump into the train, so to speak?
You really need an adoption program, a data literacy program on the cultural side, on the employee side. Your work is affected by data. You know, your data you administer is playing a bigger role, but you also need to know how you can better your own process with data. So you already see that coming up. The analytics programs, Power BI did a lot of work in that make analytics possible for everyone within the office. So you see a lot of people starting to learn to work with the data. If I look at my own kids who are in the 20s now, for them working with data is the new normal.
Yeah.
But also our generation who are still sometimes not that intensely working with data need to learn that. And you need to do that in a separate way for the early adapter. You need to coach him because he's gonna make the path for the following. And you also have on the other side the one who's thinking of data, nothing for me, I don't want that, it's gonna change my job. And you need to prove to him that he still has his job and his job is going to be a lot more fun. Yeah. So that's a different approach on a different kind of employee.
Exactly.
You need those kind of adoption programs.
If I can add to that, Alexander, we did a study with IDC in 2018, and specifically on data literacy, under 30% of business managers were not confident that themselves and their employees would be able to understand the data properly.
Yeah.
And that's also why Qlik has we have a data literacy service, which we strongly believe in, and it's even such to an extent that we don't even focus purely on our own technology. You know, customers can use our services to also to improve data literacy independent of the analytical platform they're using. But we really believe strongly that that's a massive, important aspect of this paradigm shift to these modern platforms, is that people are able to understand what they're seeing.
Yeah. And not only understand it, but also
act on it.
Act on it. Yeah. So what we also try to do for Microsoft is to make it as easy as possible to work with it. So that's why we put all this stuff in Azure Synapse as one tool. But Alex just mentioned Power BI. There's a button on Power BI which is incredible. You have a data set and you kind of not know it very well, but you got it from somebody in the business. And there's a button, an Explore button on it. And when you push that Explore button, it will analyze, on basis of artificial intelligence, it will analyze that data set and it will return automatically 10 to 15 graphs. Like, hey, did you know that on such a day, then this product peaks? Did you know that if the sun shines, this one happens?
So exploring and visualizing the data for you.
It's exploring the data for you, and then it's like, that's brilliant. Use that one, use that one, use that one, use that one, and I've got a new dashboard. I explored my data. The artificial intelligence helped me do that. I got insights, and I'm able, as a business user, to immediately get value out of that data and talk to people around that. So, hey, look at this, guys. If this happens, then that happens. So if we move this to there, and we do that every week, we'll earn more money.
That's a little...
With one push on the button.
And what you said, explaining it in a natural language.
Yeah.
And also doing the analytics, you see that with the AI models and the compute coming up, that's getting possible to do a natural language question to data.
Yeah, and that's actually what just to build upon Harry's mention of the Power BI button. We have a similar, we have an associative engine within Qlik Sense, our analytical capability, that also brings all these suggestive insights. But working with conversational AI that we have, you know, our chatbot, you can actually talk to your data and it will give you recommendations, but also give you insights in things that you weren't thinking about. So hey, we also see that you're asking about sales orders, but we're also seeing an uptake in, in payments in certain areas of the world. Would you like to focus on that? Yes, and then it brings up that context, right? And then you can share and bring it to other people. So I think that's quite powerful.
We see that the vendors are making magical stuff there, and it's I'm also enthusiastic. But to come back to, because we have to conclude the session, one of the things is the technology is fast, and you as an organization, you have to cope with that pace, train your users. That's why we want to conclude also that you have to take action right now to be, how do you say it, compatible or competable in the next couple of years. That's something that we agree on.
Don't be afraid to take the step now. It's going to change, but it's going to change anyhow. If I step in 2 years, it's going to change again. So dare to step in,
It's
find out the
cliché,
capabilities you
it's
need.
It's a cliche, but the only constant really is change.
Yeah.
That's always happening, and faster and continually adapting and moving. And technology is one part, people is another. Ethics, of course, is coming up as well. But I think to be able to do nothing, that's like Blockbuster not thinking we need to go online with our proposition. Right?
Nice example.
Netflix started with mailing DVD, but that's bringing it at home, which then became the viewing it at home thing.
Guys, thank you very much. Thank you for your stories and your thoughts. We'll have to end it here. So back at home, thank you for viewing our live session. If you have any questions, once again, feel free to mail us at the email address you see in the screen. And for now, thank you. Also,
We thank you.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you.
Okay.
Cheers.